And uncross legs, uncross hands, just open channel for the body. And as you breathe deeply, just imagine your feet with roots going through the floor, down through the ground, down to the earth. And imagine that energy going down and then circulating back up through the body to that beautiful top chakra, the seventh one, open to everything, open to all, open to the universe. And as we bring ourselves into this beautiful thing, this beautiful meeting we call Paradigm Shifters, hosted and created by this wonderful being that I know is Judy Matejcek. I know everybody on this call today is lifted up, finding the fun, finding the joy, finding all of the gratitude that there is to be found in life in every single moment. And so knowing that this party has started, and it is good because it is spirit, and it is spirit doing its thing. I declare it to be good, and we let it be, and we just simply say thank you, and so it is.
Amen. Woo! What a way to kick off Paradigm Shifters, October 13th, 2020. Yes. And I'm so grateful because it's Speaker Tuesday. And we have had, right here in this room, we have our very first speaker that was ever on with us, Tish Hartwell from Chicago. And Kit is our 8th speaker. Isn't that cool?
Nice.
And so we've been going 2 months strong. And every Tuesday we come on. Right now we're at 235 people from 9 different countries all over the United States. And for that we say thank you and so grateful.
Indeed.
Indeed. So I would like to kick it off. Here we go. So let's take another deep breath. I love breathing. And I want to ask you, have you ever felt so isolated and alone in your life in the last 6 months? And that's where I was in April 2016, looking for a spiritual home. Music was my only connection to God, and I felt so alone and isolated. And that's when I was searching and needed to get out of Austin, Texas, and drive away from the chaos. So my entire family, it was Easter, April 2016, we drove through the hill country an hour and a half to this little town called Wimberley, Texas, to Unity of Texas. Over that low water bridge, through that water, up to the hill onto this ranch. And we walked in, and there was Kit behind the piano. And I knew we were home. Not only me, the music, but my entire family was there. Julie was sitting next to me. She had her kids in the back. And Kit's music it touched our hearts. And I looked over and Julie was crying for the first time in a long time. And there's nothing like sitting in a spiritual home with the most beautiful music with Kit. And I just didn't know if you knew that, Kit, but it was very important day for me. And that's when I got turned on to Kit Holmes and Kit Holmes music. And let me just tell you a little bit, just to introduce you formally. Kit is the Associate Spiritual Leader at Unity of Wimberley, Texas. She's a coach and consultant at Living Center Stream, singer-songwriter, and an innovative and collaborative, Wimberley of Texas is an innovative and collaborative ministry that offers the teachings of Dr. Ernest Holmes, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, and many other New Thought luminaries. So I love this that I pulled up, that Kit is a singer-songwriter. She performing songwriter, arranger, and producer. Kit Holmes morphs multiple musical genres into soul-searching, stirring catalog of jazz-infused, piano-driven Americana. So with that, I'd like to present to you my friend and mentor, Kit Holmes, who's our guest today. Hi, Kit.
Hi, Judy. Thank you so much. And I appreciate, thank you for sharing that about Easter, coming down on Easter. I think we had already met. We had already met through the Mary Morrissey's organization, and was so glad to see you in the house that Easter Sunday in 2016. I was like, Judy Matejcek in the house. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for asking me to do this, Judy.
Well, one of the things that we were discussing over the weeks is the importance of so many different things in this shifting time. And I would like to have you tell us a little bit about your background in music and how it affects your shift, the people who hear your music, and what is the importance of that. So I'm just going to turn it over to you and have at it.
Okay. I have been I just say lifelong musician because I was raised in a musical house. Everybody played, everybody sang. We didn't do a lot of that together, interestingly enough, but we all had, there was always a piano in the house, there were always instruments in the house. And my very first instrument was actually not piano, it was my dad's ukulele. And, he showed me how to do, 4 strings. I was like, that was easy. Okay. And then I moved into stealing my older sister's guitar when she wasn't around. And because the piano was kind of, mom taught piano, and the piano it wasn't strictly off limits, but it was, you had great respect for it. And it was also part of mom's work. It was a tool. So you want to mess it up. I got into band. I was a trombone player. Pretty much anything I picked up of interest, I could play with some proficiency. Just I have the gift that I did get from my mom of a very good ear. I thought everybody could do it. I found out that wasn't true, and it was a blessing and a curse at the same time. I got into theater in high school when band kind of lost its interest for me, and I had started playing piano. I started playing piano was about the time I was 10, and I would go down to wherever we were living, and I would play really quietly in the middle of the night, thinking nobody could hear me, because I was like, I like the piano, but I'm not supposed to be playing the piano, and I would figure things out. And figure out songs on the radio and that kind of stuff. And it became we moved from I grew up in Michigan. We moved from across the state when I had started high school, and my solace, my safety zone was I would go into the practice room in the band room and just play piano during my lunch hour. And it wasn't long before people started to gather around the practice room and start lobbing requests at me, and I started making friends that way. I got into theater and moving away from the formalized band thing. But I've been a performer. I had my first paying gig when I was 13 years old. I got $20 to play guitar in a production for an elementary school, because I was a mature 13-year-old playing for those little kids in elementary school, and it kind of went from there. I didn't actually start to write music till much later. My mindset, and this was the important part of the shift that you asked me this question, Judy. My mindset was, I was the piano player, and I was the backup singer because I had two older sisters, and my middle sister always sang lead. My older sister found the most obvious harmony, and I was on my own to find the other one if I wanted to sing with them. And it was good training. It was good practice. And so for a lot of years, I was in a lot of bands. Garage bands, rock bands, bar bands, wedding bands, all of those things where I didn't consider myself a lead singer. I was keyboardist, sang backup, and then occasionally I got to sing a lead song or two. And it never occurred to me that I should be out in front. Until I got to, I grew up in Michigan, as I said. I had moved to Wisconsin to go back to school in my mid-20s. And my partner at the time took a job at the University of Georgia. And it was either end the relationship or go to Georgia. And long story short, we ended the relationship anyway after we moved to Georgia. But I actually gave up music for a while. It was kind of a shift in my early mid-20s where I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. Everybody else had a really good time telling me what I should do with it. Mm-hmm. But I didn't have my voice. That's really what it came down to. And about this time in 19 years ago, actually about a month ago, September 2001, I was living in Georgia. I had been in a lot of bands. I had a studio of my own. I was working all the time in music, and I was miserable, and I was broke. And in 1 week, a personal relationship fell apart. A long-time business relationship with some friends that involved music and some other things, that fell apart. And the terrorist attacks on September 11th happened all in the same week.
Wow.
And I thought, well, here's my cosmic 2x4, because by that time I had started to move. I had moved through clinical depression. I had moved through a lot of therapy, and I had a very astute, very observant therapist, a godsend. The universe sent me to her because clearly I was ready, who asked me one day if I had any kind of a spiritual practice. And I had to think about it, because I never formally walked away from the faith tradition of my youth. I never said, I'm done, I'm out of here. It was just this gradual, I don't fit. And I started to explore. This therapist gave me a reading list, and on the top of that reading list was Marianne Williamson, Joan Borisenko, Christine, Women's Bodies, Christiane, is it Northrup? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, the name didn't sound right. Anyway, it was this reading list of just kind of spiritually based, but not. And I started gathering with people who were doing, Celtic celebrations and Native American and Buddhist. And I thought at first, and by the way, I was raised Catholic, and I thought at first I was going to get struck down. And what I found was during that week of the September 11th, I had been wanting to leave Georgia, didn't know where to go. And I had been introduced to Austin, Texas about 10 years prior. I felt that there was something here. I had no idea what was really here for me. And I took this enormous leap to sell everything that I could, put the rest in storage, packed up my dog, packed up my musical gear and my computer, and moved to a ranch north of Austin. And when no job, no partner, no nothing, it was absolutely starting over. But I made an intention, I set an intention to learn more about the craft of songwriting. Oh. And prior to that, I'd gone to a couple of workshops, I'd gone to a couple of open mics. I was, finding my feet. And when I really started to focus on my writing, it was really therapy for me. And it was moving, as I was moving into a spiritual practice. I had been introduced a little before that move. I had been introduced to the science of mind, to the works of Ernest Holmes. And I thought, wow, these are my peeps. These are my people. And when I came to Texas, I got to Texas on a Saturday evening. The next morning, I found at the time, it was called the New Vision Center for New Vision Church of Religious Science, which is what they were called at the time. And Sunday morning, I went and I said, I'm home. And about a year later, I was sharing that I was a musician, and then they asked me to play a song or two. And this fellow in the crowd was introducing me to someone else, and he said, this is Kit Holmes. She writes New Thought music. And I said, I don't know what that is. What does that mean? And what that means is it is the metaphysical. It's looking at the positive. It's looking at mindset. It's walking through the fire with a positive attitude, knowing I'm going to come out the other end. I didn't know that's what I was doing. That was just, as I said, my therapy. And the shift from moving into Austin, Texas, if those of you who may not be aware, had the moniker of the live music capital of the world. And that's changed in the last 9 months. But the wealth of writers and creativity and support, it was really like a family in terms of the songwriting community here. Hugely supportive, not competitive like Nashville or Los Angeles or New York. It was just this warm, nurturing, like embrace wherever you are in your process kind of thing. And it just really evolved from there, that my music was absolutely running parallel with my spiritual awakening, my spiritual growth, my expansion in consciousness. And for the first part of it, I was afraid to put it out publicly, other than in my small group of like-minded spiritual people, because I was afraid that it would label me as some things that I didn't want to be labeled, in terms of, oh, you're a Christian musician, or, it's like, no, no, that's not who I am. But I tiptoed, as we do in this work, as we shift our paradigms, Judy Matejczak, was stepping out on the edge and trusting that one particular song, it was actually It's a New Day song.
Right.
And I put that out there at an event. And I think it was a songwriting event, I don't remember, but people were responding. I wasn't getting like, ooh, that's a great praise song or a Christian song. I was like, no, they were just responding to the message that right now it's a new day, a brand new day, every single moment. We get to decide how we want that day to go. And it was resonating with people. And Sarah Hickman, who's a very well-known Austin singer-songwriter, international touring, was at that event. And she came up to me and she said, I think that would be a great theme song for the Austin Interreligious Minute, whatever it was at the time. It was this non-denominational and all denominations at the same time for their annual thing. Would you come and play it? And I went, well, look at that. And I kept writing, and I kept getting better at writing, and I kept producing and getting better at producing, and all of those things. And when I finally stopped thinking about what other people would think, and instead focused on putting that message out into the world, things just blossomed and opened up.
So I have a question about this is awesome background. And there's a couple of things, if you're taking notes, you guys, a couple of notes that I would like to, is there that one, you made an intention, and two, it was like you were finding your voice.
Yes.
Now, I wanted to ask you a question about the last 6 months.
Sure.
Because up until then, we were live. People were coming, and there was a shift. Now, I would like to have you if you could, like, where is it that we who are isolated, who are in our homes, who are in our countries and in fear, where does music come in there where we can feel connected, number one? And two, how did you personally have to or choose to shift and not just say, I can't do it anymore?
The first question, music absolutely as a healing element. It has been since the dawn of time. Um, we could go into the deep science of resonance and the molecules and how we vibrate, and we each have our own resonant frequency. But music has been, as I said, from the beginning of time, it has been a healing thing. It's been the thing that connects us. In joy, in sorrow, in all of those things. When we hear a familiar tune, we know that somewhere, someone else, whether we know it consciously or not, we know that somewhere somebody else in the world is probably singing that song or listening to that song or feeling the feels of that song. So it is absolutely vital. My connection outside of my own, just playing and just playing for my own enjoyment, not for work. I find other meditation music. I find, I will share because I'm really hooked on this guy right now. Called Gary Malkin, Malkin. Emmy award winning. He did this thing called, and I'm losing the word on it, but look him up. And it is my go-to because not only is it this astoundingly beautiful music, it's also embedded with the frequencies. It's like the stuff. Don't drive when you're listening to it, because it does some beautiful things, especially when you're on headphones with it. And that's my go-to. In fact, I would say I'm listening to the entire album probably at least once a day right now, because it keeps me incredibly grounded. It moves me in ways that I can't even begin to describe. So yes, music. If you don't know about Insight Timer, about the app, Insight, INSIGHT, it's a free app. Thousands and thousands of guided meditations, long ones, short ones, a minute long, 2 hours long, 3 hours long, just music, white noise, background noise, if in any manner that you need. I use that as well, because I just, I've got put it on at night, go to sleep to it with a clean slate kind of thing. So I highly recommend that. Know that neither one of them are paying me to say that. They're just my personal people. I like to share that. When I find something that really works for me, I love to share it. So the last 6 months, we went from and speaking just strictly from Unity of Wimberley, Texas, averaging about 100 people on a Sunday morning. About 30, close to a third, sometimes almost half of our congregation coming to our classes in person. I was doing some online classes along the way. We had already started live streaming, thank God, close to 3 years ago. So we had that down. I'm forever grateful that we were already doing that. But that shift, from one Sunday to the next. Our last in-person service was on Sunday, March 8th. And the next Sunday, I was already on the schedule to do the lesson, to do the talk. And I felt such an enormous shift in myself of like the universe tapping me on the shoulder saying, okay, now this is the thing. This is your time.
I remember that day so well. I was so sad.
Yeah, there was so much grief. and also and a lot of confusion, and a lot of people just like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. And on the one hand, I felt this enormous, I don't want to say weight. It wasn't a weight. It was an enormous sense of responsibility, enormous sense of responsibility that I was going to be the one to kick this off, of people not being in the room anymore. Honestly, I don't even remember what I talked about that day. I just know that I got out of the way. I just got out of the way and let Spirit speak through me what needed to be said. And from my side of it, I'm still connected, because we have our skeleton crew, we have our camera people, our audio people. I have one other musician in the room with me. Our senior minister for the first 3 months pre-recorded her talks because her husband is very compromised physically, and so she didn't want to risk driving. You know, she doesn't live in Wimberley, she lives in Austin. She didn't want to risk driving down, and so every week was a new technical lesson. Every week was a new, how do we do this? And so on the one hand, I have the tremendous blessing of being connected to my people, you know, my peeps in the room, and that didn't shift. On the other hand, it was more of the, how do we connect with people who aren't coming in the room anymore? And that has been every week a new way of doing something, a new way of improving something, moving from a sanctuary and turning it into a television studio.
Wow.
And that's what it's become over the last 6 months. That
yeah, just on this side of it, because it's been like 6 months.
Yeah.
It's almost like, well, it's online church day, and
Yeah.
it was like, okay, we're eating our breakfast, and we got Kit and Jill on the table, and when you go like this into the camera with your hands and we're praying together, it's like we're touching the screen to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's almost like the new normal, the new shift. And there's one thing that I really, really, really miss: potluck Sundays. So, at any rate, so there has been a shift in services and in music, and so where do you find yourself currently in that? I know you were in Michigan for months,
Mm-hmm.
and you were still doing it, crazy technology.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to get something deeper about the feeling. Like you're serving many more people than just the Unity people right now.
Yeah. And you know, that was the I think one of the talks I did, maybe it was in July, was the unforeseen blessings of this. Some of it was a little more, there was a lot more gravity to it than others, but I remember at that point, I had a lot of little aha moments dropping in. One was that exactly what you said, Judy, was we started to see that we had more people watching online than had ever come into the room on a Sunday. Like I said, we averaged 100 people in the room on a Sunday, and sometimes it was 140 if there was, you know, a big service overflow, and sometimes more than that. But we were already seeing that people were not necessarily either watching on Sunday when it was live, they were going back later and watching it. And that has continued to expand. And it's like, wow, look at that. Look at the shift in how we are gathering and how we are reaching people. So it's hugely gratifying. When you said Kenya was in the house today, I'm like, yeah. And I was like, woohoo. But that's happening. And that's a joy, because we are reaching more people than would ever, you know, that don't do church, that don't want to be in a sanctuary, that don't, as you know, we've heard a lot of people say, don't want to darken our doorstep, or afraid they might get struck by lightning. and it gives a new way for people to access what it is that we teach, what it is that we live. The technology you mentioned is way cool because my wife and I are here in Central Texas, and we go up to Northwest Michigan, where I grew up, usually for a couple months in the summer. And it was a whole lot more work, but I was able to continue working seamlessly. And the team back here, most people didn't know for 2.5 months that I wasn't in the room, because the technology, I would pre-record the music. They would split screen, blend screen with my other musician who was playing live to my videos in the room for the live stream. It was crazy. And then what I started to see happening was there were particular Sundays where I was actually able to be in 3 places at once and get paid for it. Yes, talk about prosperity. Talk about reaching out to people. There was one Sunday I was in Phoenix, I was in Austin, and I was in Michigan at the same time. It was pretty darn cool. And at Wimberley, yeah, I was there too. So
if you were to give, if you were to take I'm watching the clock. I want to make sure that we get some time for some Q&A. But
absolutely,
if you were to pick the one tool that you could put out to the paradigm shifters to use when they're feeling uncertain, what would that be, as far as like your gift of music or whatever? What would be the one tool that you would love? And then there's one more question I'd like to ask you.
Okay. Uncertainty, in a moment of uncertainty, is always asking the question, where do you want to go? Or what do you want to do? How do you want this to turn out? Because it takes us back to that place of intention. And if we are directing our thoughts towards the doubt and uncertainty and the fear and the all of these things, we know we generate more of that. So in those moments, well, the first thing I always say is take a breath. The second one is ask the question, how do I want this to turn out? Where would I love to be? What would I love to be doing right now? For example, do I want to continue this argument in my own head with a person who's not in the room? Or do I want to shift my thoughts to a loving solution, a more joyful resolution, whatever that might be? That is my number one tool. Do I want to continue this crazy train I'm on at the moment?
Awesome. All right. And then the question that I love to ask everyone who's taken the time to come on here, thank you so much for got a lot of gold nuggets here, is what is it, Kit, that you would like to have us as a community hold for you personally, whatever it is? We're here to support you.
Thank you.
As well. What would you love for us to hold for you?
Wow, the first thing that comes to mind is that you don't need to know the backstory, but Judy, you know the backstory about the commercial property in Michigan. To clean the energy around it, the short version is we have a commercial property. We were going to open a multi-use music venue last year. It did not happen. We see the gifts of that not happening now. But the building is for sale. We made some business decisions. The building is for sale. We know our energy is not clear around letting it go because we love it. So what I would love to have you all know for me, and this has been my intention, is if it is not ours to keep, please remove the desire. If it is ours to keep, then show me the money, baby. And so we can rehab it and move forward with it. So that's as succinct and as clear as I can be on that without going into a huge backstory.
Oh, okay. I know, right. What I would like to do now is everybody here, we're gonna we're gonna go. And so it is. And so it is. Thank you so much. Well, great. Thank you so much. And what I'm going to do is come back next week for our next speaker. And if you're here live with us, hang on. I'm going to end the recording and appreciate you so much for being here. There we go.